everybody, welcome back to Black and Blending. Black to the Blending, how you guys doing? Yes. Welcome back, guys. Today we have a special guest with us, and we are honored to have him on our channel. But before we let him introduce himself, I would like for all new members who haven't subscribed to our channel to please subscribe below and turn on your notification bell so that you are notified every time we post a video. Right. So Black and Blending is all about blending families, sex and relationship, and a whole lot more. And we don't want you guys to miss out on any of that. All right. So let me allow my guest or our guest to introduce himself.
Hey, what's going on? I always say Blendcredible crew, but this is not a Blendcredible crew, so to speak. But hey, I'm honored to be here. My name is Tim Watson. I am the host of the all-new Blendcredible podcast. And I am very excited to be here sharing a little time with my fam across the water. We're going to get into some things today, and I'm excited to meet you all. So I'm thankful to them for inviting me to be a part of you all's platform. Thank you all who are watching for so graciously allowing me the space and time to get all in your ear and into some of your business. So that's how we're going to do it. I'm glad to be here today.
Wow.
Great to have you here. Great to have you here.
So maybe just tell our audience a bit about your podcast.
Okay. Well, the Blendcredible podcast is a podcast that was created out of a need to share step parenting from a different angle, blended families from a different angle. I wanted to celebrate those two dynamics. I think there's so many things out here right now that are dealing with how to survive in this dynamic, right? Not so much how to be celebrated in this dynamic. So many step parents, so many families are simply existing in this dynamic. They are just going one day at a time, and some of them are living event by event by event. That means they've gotten through a certain stage in their marriage or in their lives. Now they're waiting and looking towards the next big event or something good, something that can take their minds off of what is really truly taking place and evolving in their home. So that's called an event by event lifestyle. I wanted to come in and give a perspective of celebration. I wanted to unravel and reveal how step parents and blended families can own and step into their power as influencers in their home. So that's how the podcast was started. And you can dive in, take a listen to it on any of the podcast platforms. Blendcredible is fairly new. We've been so fortunate and blessed to meet so many new people over the span of the last couple of years. Can't even express how grateful I am for that. So that is it in a nutshell. That's my elevator pitch for Blendcredible.
Well, that's a really good one.
Yeah.
So you know that we're not newly, but
We old now.
whatever.
We're not new no more.
But so like I think we already had a conversation before about how we also started the channel and everything. And so for us, it's almost like the same thing. We're also just trying to share information or whatever we go through to just people who are coming up. And, because a lot of people don't think that blended families are successful, So we
Right.
want to be like one of those positive blending families that make it. So we just wanted to kind of like just have like a random conversation with some question and answer thing. So the first thing that actually came to mind when I was thinking of like questions to ask was like when you first started your blending. I don't know how long ago it started. I don't know if this is your first blending family you've ever been in. But what were your thoughts in your mind? What were your thoughts when you first started blending?
So a great question. Thank you for asking that. Wait a minute. Hold. Yes, thank you again for the question. Yeah, this is my second time as a stepdad. So I've been a stepdad twice in so many different variations of this dynamic. My first go round as a stepdad, I was a single man, no children, My first stepson, when I
Ding
came
ding
into
ding
the
ding
relationship, he
ding.
was, yeah, he was
Yeah,
8
like me.
at the
Yeah.
time when I
Mm.
came in. So that was interesting for me because I knew absolutely nothing about the actual physical responsibilities of a father. I read so many books. I read books. I went to seminars. I did a lot of things to prepare for that, not knowing that I was going to be a stepdad. I did that to prepare to be a husband, not a stepdad. But it just so happened that the woman that I met had a son, and he's a great son. Then he's a great man now. So that was unexpected. So I was into it before I knew I was into it.
Mm.
To answer your question, the invitation for me was, I think the thing that got me was the fact that here was a guy, he was 8, and he had no dad. Well, his dad was living, but not in his life at all. He wasn't in his life. He didn't show up. He didn't
Mm.
phone calls. Even when we were dating, he never showed up. He didn't call, no birthday cards, nothing.
That's my story, man.
So
You're telling my story.
yeah, man.
Yeah.
So and the sad thing about it is it is more popular than we tend to even know.
Mm.
But here's the other side of that. I want to say something on the other side of that first marriage before I get to the second one. I had my bio son in this first marriage as well. So we'll get into that later on. But here I am, no children. I'm trying to figure out how this thing works. This young man's dad is not in the picture at all. So years go by. This is like 8 or 9 years into the marriage. I'm more mature now than I was when I got into the marriage. 10 more years, 10 years of age and learning some things, going through the ups and downs with this young man. And quite naturally, the older he got, the more frustrated he got with the fact that I am the representation in his home of what he is longing for and needs to identify outside of the home with. So when you have that, you find yourself in a position to be the catechism of all the frustration and the pain and the anger and the confusion that this young man grows up trying to navigate through. And the only person that he has to take that out on is the person who identifies physically in that home as the father. And that was me.
Mm.
So 8 years old was good. 9 years old was good. 10, good. 11, you're starting to see some changes. 12, cognitive thinking starts to kick in. Reasoning begins to happen now because now it's just not a little boy who's just grateful to have a dad. Now it's a young man who now understands that not only do I come from
Priority.
another person,
Yeah.
now I need to desperately and deeply identify with that person. You're here and I appreciate you. I really do. But I can't identify with you knowing that there is someone else out there that I need to validate myself with maternally, right? So when they got to that stage, then that's when things started to change. Not only that, he was growing up, looking for independence, doing all that thing. So my first go around as a stepdad was quite trying because I made so many mistakes. Had I known then what I know now as a stepdad, I can honestly tell you that journey would have been a lot more smoother. Would I have taken some blows and some shots? Of course, but it would not have been near as destructive as it was because I didn't know. So the first go around, fast forward 11 years into that marriage dissolves, goes, we go our separate ways. He is a grown man now with his own children, and he's doing quite well. There are no hard feelings or anything like that. I can say this: the relationship that him and I have, even right now when we see each other, is a respectful one. I respect him; he respects me, and I think that's all you could ask for when you come in as a stepdad. Anything other than that is gravy, and we'll get into that later too. So, my thoughts on being a stepdad after that first marriage. I told myself that I would never do it again. And that was just, I mean, I had my bio son in that relationship. So I came out of that
How
with
did
the,
sorry,
yeah, go ahead, ask the question.
yeah, I just want to know, like, it's just a dynamic that I myself am trying to just like understand, you know. But I just want to know how did, because especially when you're new, I get the whole concept of making mistakes first time, because I'm obviously kind of living your experience in a way, basically. So like what I want to know is like how did your biological son kind of merge with your stepson? You know, how did your biological
Good
child
question.
did, because I think the biggest mistake a step parent usually makes in that circumstance is to kind of like congregate a lot more with obviously your biological child than the stepchild, you know, because
Okay.
naturally you also react naturally to your stepson's natural reaction to you, you know. So he's like, you know, hey, I respect you, it's great that you're here, but I can't really identify you. Then you say to yourself, yeah, I tried, you know, to identify with you, but hey, I have my own child, you know, in your own mind. You know what I'm saying? That it happens a lot in families. So obviously I don't have my own biological child, but I just wanna like kind of get a perception of how that happened with you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Now, a lot of times too, our fellow stepmoms deal with this so much more than we as stepdads do. But the thing that's so great about that question is stepdads don't get asked that question a lot, and it's not brought to the forefront as much. Our stepmoms have to deal with so many calisthenics in that area. Um, but as a stepdad, for me, it was quite natural and it was very easy to tell you, really, because we had a family unit. To my bio son, when he came into this world and even into this dynamic, nothing was step to him. Nothing was bonus to him. Nothing was half. It was family. That's all he knew. So when he came into this world, into that family, that dynamic we had, it was easy for me because he didn't know me as his brother's stepdad. He knew me as his brother's dad. That's how he related to me while he was growing up, and to how he related to his brother. So even to this day, him and his brother have a very tight relationship because that's who he is. So to that point now, that first family, that first dynamic that he was born into was much more easier to integrate than the second family that I married into as a stepdad. And that we can talk about a little bit later on.
Yeah,
But
that's a
the
fun dynamic.
first family,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
So the first family, quite easy because it was natural. It was natural for his mom because that was his mom. It was natural for me because he was my son. It was natural for his brother because that was his brother.
Yeah.
So when he grew up into that situation, for us, we didn't even talk about or even live as though, hey, this is your bonus brother or your step brother. This is your brother. This is how we acknowledged it. So I can probably say unequivocally, hands down, that in situations like yours, bringing a child into that environment is a beautiful thing because that child knows nothing else besides the family that he or she is born into. The older they get, the more they will understand. And by the time they really conclude what this whole thing is I'm in the middle of, it's too late. You guys are family. That's all he knows. That's all she knows. So I think something like that for you or for anybody who's watching, it's a very valid fear. It's a very valid, apprehensive state to
Yeah.
be in as
Yeah.
a father. It really is. I thought about it, like, what in the world is going to happen?
Then, you know, with my
How am I
son,
going to be?
I met
So,
my son at age 2. So like
Mm-hmm.
the difference between 8 and 2 is pretty vast, obviously.
Yeah.
So I guess my experience is a little different in that, like, I guess by age 8, perhaps, like your son had
Mm-hmm.
a lot more of a guard up, I would say, you know, naturally, because at that age, okay, this is my mom. And pretty
Right.
much, yeah, that's, you've pretty much already
Mm-hmm.
identified your elders, and it's a lot harder
Mm-hmm.
as he grows older. But obviously, when he was young, I mean, he was like 2
Mm-hmm.
and like in nappies pretty much, a diaper, sorry. So, it was, the connection is pretty much, it's like he's natural, you know what I'm saying? It's very natural,
Absolutely.
especially since the biological father's obviously not in the picture, you know?
Just not there.
He's not there
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
nothing I
So.
can say to that. So it's life.
Mhm. No,
Yeah.
you're fine. And I think we have, they say it.
No, no, I was just gonna add that, and the fact that he doesn't remember anything before he met his dad is amazing, because when you ask him, do you
Mm-hmm.
remember anything, he doesn't. His memories
Mm-hmm.
start from having, my husband as his father.
Right. 2 years old. Right. So
Yeah, it's very
all
early.
everything that he hasn't even really quite developed a sense of cognitive memory
Mm,
for who his dad is.
mm,
So that's also very, very good in a way. And I think we talked about that some time ago. For me, at 8, when I came into my first stepson's life, he was quite inviting. I don't think, and he's really one of the main reasons why I went ahead and decided to be a stepdad, because he's a beautiful kid, very warm, inviting, opening, welcoming, and he didn't make it hard for me to fall in love with the idea of being a dad.
that's good.
So
Mm,
that I can say is good. We had some other things happen later on down the road, even with his biological dad. I think that would be a whole different type of meeting, but it was still good. Again, the question was great. I think for the way I felt being a stepdad, was unsure. I was unsure. And then when I got into it, I was already in it, and I found myself sometimes um, trying to backtrack after I already made mistakes, and it doesn't work that way. So I remember sometimes just going to sleep, couldn't even sleep, a year into the marriage, 2 years into the marriage, straight thinking about mistakes I made, and I'm thinking, man, if I could just go back, but you can't. And some of the things I did great, some of the things I did well, helped out too. So segue after that, got out of that marriage, we grew apart, and I said I would never do that again. I would never give my time, my energy, my heart, open my life up to another person's children, only to grow up and have no guarantee that that would ever be appreciated.
mm,
And that's what I told myself. But after a while, um, I sat and had really a good talk with myself, and I just came to the conclusion, man, um, two things. One, at my age, at the time when I was divorced, I think I was in my late 30s. So at that time, I was thinking anybody that you're going to get with pretty much is probably going to have children. So you're going to have to come to grips with that. The possibility of plausibility of that is great.
unless, of course, you want to be a sugar
Two,
daddy.
unless of course, and then at that age I was way too young, right, and too broke. So, so that wouldn't have worked. Yeah, I would have been a stevia
Sorry,
daddy,
man.
not a sugar
My
daddy.
wife is actually blowing my vision. Oh,
Got to get it right.
hey.
So, on top of that, I think I started to be honest with myself and say, listen, you know, I was built for this. I don't think everybody can say that. I was built for family. And so once I settled that, I forgave myself. That was the number one thing. Because the big issue with me thing is that I didn't forgive myself. That was the biggest hindrance for me going forward. All the mistakes I made, all the things I didn't get right, whether it was because I was just too ignorant or whether it was because I just didn't know or chose not to see. So I entered into my second relationship as a stepdad. And now this time I have three stepchildren, and their father
Ooh,
is
yeah.
passed away.
Wow.
So I have had now that was a whole different, man, you're talking about scared. How do you enter
How
into the
old were they?
lives of children? They were at the time, I think my youngest one was 6, and then 8 and 9.
6, 8, and 9.
So they
Gone by.
they had a really good recollection, and that whole situation for me was quite scary because I wanted to come in. I didn't want to come in being disrespectful. Then I didn't want to come in because they had already had some things that they were doing in place.
They already
And
had
I
the
talk about this in one of
biological
my
father in
podcast
their life.
episodes.
The
Oh yeah,
biological.
they knew who he was.
Okay.
Yeah. The youngest one did not. Um, very, very vague memory because she was 6, and at that time when I came to life, he had passed away
Mm.
probably for a couple years. So, um, and they were doing things to honor him every year, which I thought was wonderful. On his birthday, right? They would still honor his birthday and things like that. So when I came into that, that was very
Yeah.
um, odd for me in a good way because I thought, man, how do you enter into a life like this and allow them to maintain that and still grow? Well, the good thing about this, I had made so many mistakes my first time around that this time around,
Learned a lot.
I was ready.
Yeah.
I was ready. I had my battle scars, my war wounds,
Mm-hmm.
And I talk about the first relationship with my stepson. You hear me say I made so many mistakes. Um, to be clear, there were so many wonderful moments also, so many great times and so many things that we did right, just to be clear. But I focus on the mistakes because those are the things that are going to help new stepdads.
Mm.
The mistakes I made are what I shine on because those are the things that you need to watch out for. You need to be mindful of. You need to take heed and you need to make sure that you're in one with the mom to make sure that what they had before you showed your little butt up in the first place anyway was fine. So now here you are as a new stepdad or as a stepdad, and you're going to come in and save the day, right? You're not going to save the day. At the best, you're going to cause confusion. You're going to disrupt a rhythm that was already set in place before you showed up. So now what we need to do is learn the rhythm, understand how we fit into that rhythm, and we add our own steps to that already determined and built rhythm. We don't upstart and make anything new. So this second relationship, there are 3 children, my wife, they were doing just fine. So I came in and over time, these are my kids, right? I learned enough to know when I came to the second relationship, if they love me, great. If they do not, great. Here's the thing I want to say, and here's something that people may not understand or even agree with, but I'm going to say it because this is the truth. Your stepchildren don't owe you a thing except to respect the function. That's it. I wish I had more for you, but I don't. Anything other than what you earn along the way and invest into their lives along the way is gravy. So does that mean as step parents you put up with anything and everything? No, it doesn't. It just means that you have to understand coming into this, they don't owe you anything except respect for your function. That's it. And even that has to be earned, right? So my second marriage was a lot more easier for me as a stepdad because I knew a lot more. And some of the things I saw in my second marriage that I blundered in my first one, I just slid right through them on the second one because I saw it coming a mile away. And my kids now, I mean, I have 2 in college now. I have 2 home. One graduates next year. He'll be in college. So these are my guys. It's my ride or dies in my house right now. So I wouldn't have it any other way.